So, it's Wednesday, and it's been 4 days, and I did not get the episode reaction up, partially due to the fact that I've been busy. I just haven't had the time, and the other part of it is I didn't really have anything to say about this week's episode that wouldn't be repeating myself. I just kind of thought it was neat how he rode on top of the dragons. That was cute. But other than that, not much to say. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it ended in a cliffhanger and it started off from a cliffhanger. So what is there really to say? It's meant to be a big final conclusion arc. So with that, instead of just repeating myself, I wanted to talk about what I want out of this ending and what I expect out of it. But before I get there, I want to sort of explain myself. As many people have pointed out, I am often very harsh on things I feel the show does wrong, and some people have also pointed out I'm really insanely praising of things I think the show does right. Obviously, I named Zale my favorite anime of the year that one ended. So before we get started, I kind of want to explain why I choose to hold Yu-Gi-Oh! To such a high standard, and why I am so critical of it. In my opinion, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 had a lot to prove that the others didn't, because in my opinion, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 decides to abandon much of the formula used in the other Yu-Gi-Ohs. Now, each Yu-Gi-Oh! Tries to be unique and individual, but there is still a formula. You have all your typical character arcs: the hero, the girl, the best friend, the rival, the big villain, the crazy sort of settings and plot lines and all that. It is very shonen-y. Arc 5 decided to do away with that, and when I realized that was happening, I thought, this is ballsy. Let's see if they can do it. And for the most part, I think they did a pretty damn good job. I think they really should be commended for that. Arc 5 has some big problems, but I really think at the end of the day they should be respected. I mean, going off formula and trying something different doesn't always mean it's going to be good. It doesn't always mean it's going to be bad. But I think we have to respect the fact that a franchise this old, ran predominantly by idiots, really tried to do something different this time around. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Had nothing to prove. It didn't have to work. Why? Because, let's be real here, Yu-Gi-Oh! Really did just ride off the coattails of Pokemon. I'm not saying it's the same thing. It's very different. But it's part of that era of, if it can be made into a franchise, we're going to make it, and we're going to put it everywhere. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably did the second best compared to Pokemon, i.e., does anyone remember Monster Rancher? So when Yu-Gi-Oh! Ended, that's right, Yu-Gi-Oh! Ended. When they felt the story went on too long, it was just, we'll give it the proper ending it deserves. So they did it, and I liked it, but that meant, where do we go from here? Well, we're going to do GX, and I know a lot of people love GX, but I hate GX. And the reason I hate GX, or a big part of it, is that I feel it's very tacked and very poorly put together. You can clearly tell from the beginning there was no direction on it. They didn't know what they wanted to do with it or where they wanted it to go. So they just kind of threw everything against the wall and went with it. But GX was able to ride sort of the high of the beginning of the slice of life genre. I don't know if any of you remember this. GX came out around the time of things like Lucky Star, Ozamangadaioh, Nichijou. Okay, some of these might be a little more out there, but this was that time period. These things were all coming out. Just sort of take any sort of random plot point with any sort of random group of characters, set them in high school. That's what GX was. It was that genre, and some people really like that. I just feel it's a directionless mess. Then we moved on to 5Ds, many people's favorite, and if it is, I'm glad for you. I felt GX was just that 5Ds was the same thing. It did the exact same thing. What was popular at the time? Well, make everything darker. Well, it's got to have some big philosophical society message edge to it. This was the time of your Code Geasses, your Death Notes, your Gundam 00s. The era was now, we need to be thinky, and sometimes this worked out well, and in 5D's case, I think it is one of the more competent animes from this era. But the thing is again, it is of the time. It very much was taking from what was around it. And that is what very much influenced the story. Then you move on to Zale, and Zale, they clearly made a paradigm shift. They decided, no, we're not doing this again. Everyone's starting to catch on. So they decided, in their wiseness, we're just going to do our own story. It's not going to feel indicative of anything of the time period. It's just going to be what we want. And that's part of the reason it's my favorite. But I do fully acknowledge it still follows this formula. It is very much a hero's journey story. And I love it for that, but again, it follows a very common archetype. It just does it very well. And it still has the common things in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have the best friend, you have the rival, you have the love interest, you have the big villain. So with Arc 5, they abandoned all this. Or they didn't abandon it, the roles are still there, but they're changed and played around with. Now your protagonist, Yuya, instead of being this guy who gets bigger and stronger, we're at the end of the series. I don't feel like he's turned into this big heroic man type, kind of like what they did with Yuma. I really feel like this guy hasn't gone much more than what he has. He learned his lesson, he learned how to become a performer, but I don't get that big, epic, larger-than-life sense. And that's a good thing. That is what they're trying to do. He's a much more vulnerable character. He's meant to be a lot more easily swayed. He can feel temptation. He's not infallible. I don't think he was done particularly well, and I have a lot of problems with him, but I like what they tried to do. Then you have Yuzu, who in my opinion really is the heart and soul of this story. Okay, again, last 20 episodes or so just abandons any use of her, but she was the one giving it forward momentum. Everything revolved around her. Again, many people will point to Akiza as being the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh! Girl, but let me remind you, the second half, she did nothing. She was there for fan service. That was it. The rival, Sawatori, he's going to have a reduced role, but whenever he is on screen, they make sure to make him the focus, as opposed to, say, someone like Chaz, who is also a more sort of goofy, not a big presence rival, but I don't remember anything about Chaz. I just remember he got stalked by the Ojamas. That's about it with him. And then you had Reiji, a fascinating character with a lot of interesting points to him, and everyone else, too, had great moments, and I felt like this one took more risk, and I felt like this one deviated from the formula, and I feel like that really is why I have a lot of respect for this one and why I expect a lot out of it, because I just feel like it's not the best one, but it's the riskiest one. They took so many leaps and bounds, and I hope V-Reigns continues to move things forward as well for this franchise. But I am worried the ending will be lackluster. I am worried it won't have any sense of emotion to it. And that's because it seems like for the past several episodes, they just gave up. Once Yuya turned to Zark, that Yuya versus Yuri duel is amazing. But once he became Zark and he's just a stupid gargoyle dragon demon thing, and everyone just loses to him till Reira just magically wins, and then we're back in the city and all the stakes are gone. And instead of focusing on just trying to save Yuzu, we gotta go to the other dimensions and duel everyone. And we gotta make everyone smile. I don't care. That wasn't what made the series interesting. What made the series interesting was this smaller, more vulnerable, darker story. And I want the finale to make that feel like a conclusion. I don't feel like the ending to 5Ds is satisfying. We're going to turn the last 3 episodes into a stupid soap opera if this girl's going to admit if she loves this guy. I don't like the ending to GX. The duel is awesome, but everyone else just feels like they were just thrown away so that way this asshole Jaden can just do whatever. I like the first ending and I like the Zale ending. The rest just, to me, fall flat, and I don't want this one to fall flat because the ending, to me, is a lot of times paramount. With GX and 5Ds, the things I do enjoy about those series are not affected by their endings, but a lot of times they are, and I feel like this one needs to have the satisfying conclusion. There's a lot you can do with it, but I feel like the dimensions need to come back to be one. Yuya needs to reunite with Yuzu. I just don't want some sort of tacked-on ending where he's just like, make everyone smile. No, I want the more emotional ending. I want some interesting psychological type things to happen. You've got 25 minutes. Go out with a bang. Don't go out with a whimper. That's basically what I'm saying and why I made this video. I'm saying that the reason I keep up with Yu-Gi-Oh! As an anime is that I feel of the shonens, and I'm not just talking about the big 3. I'm talking about your Pokemons, your fairy tales, everything like this. I feel Yu-Gi-Oh! Delivers the most consistently. I feel it has, at least for me, done the best job of giving a continually good, entertaining story. There have been high and low points, but I do have a lot of respect for this franchise, and I feel it does try to strive for excellence. So I do feel bad when I see the past several episodes just kind of half-assing it, and I don't want that to continue. I want Yu-Gi-Oh! To succeed, and I want it to keep growing. So just let me know if you agree with me, if you feel that the last episode needs to have the big emotional stakes that I liked and that I want to see and all that good stuff. And as always, click to like and click to subscribe, and we'll talk about more about it Monday.